Hey there everybody, and welcome to this video where I'll be showing you 10 tips to help you draw portraits better. So number one is to get the outline/proportions right. This is one of the few things that beginners always underestimate. They always go for the shading or the detailing, and they focus on that instead of focusing on the most important thing, that is proportion. If you get the proportion wrong, it's obviously going to look like someone else. So you can check out my grid drawing method tutorial video, which I'll link down in the description below, if you want to know how to get the proportions right. Tip number two is to leave the whites white. You know, in portraits, you see all those highlights on people's skin and on their eyes. You better leave that white. Most times when people are shading or coloring, they tend to go into that area. The one thing that brings life in a portrait or any object that makes it look realistic as a drawing is the highlight and the shadows. So if you find a highlight, you make sure you either paint it or color it white, or just leave it to the paper's color, which I hope is white. So it's very simple, but it can really improve your drawings. So tip number three, add more contrast. This is something I tell people a lot, because adding more contrast actually brings more life to the portrait. It actually defines the face more. It defines the features of the face more and actually brings it so much more to life. Have you seen these portraits that photographers take with one-sided lighting? And one-sided lighting, I mean, not too even, right? When lighting on one side is strong, it actually gets more contrast and brings more life and looks more lifelike and realistic. I can't quite put my finger on what it is, but it makes it look amazing. And especially for beginners who cannot point out halftones and complicated stuff like that, contrast actually makes it very black and white, which is easy for the beginner's eye to see and to execute on paper. One thing I would recommend is to buy shading pencils. There are cheap ones available probably in your nearest stationery shop. So buy that. What it'll give you a range to pick from, a range of graphite pencils with different shades to pick from. That way you can choose the darkest shade of graphite for the darkest value on your portrait. For the rest, you can just go for the lighter tones. It will really up your portrait game. Now the fourth tip, this also comes under contrast, but this comes with more of picking the photo. If you're a beginner, I highly recommend you go pick pictures with really high contrast. So there's a large amount of shadow on one side, or basically there are a lot of shadows and a lot of whites. This is something the beginner's eye can easily see, and as you get more advanced, you'll be able to see more lighter shadows and more lighter highlights. And that takes time. It's better to choose high contrast and sharp photos if you want to get results easily. Now the fifth tip is to use a bigger paper. I don't do this myself a lot, but I do believe that when you use a bigger paper, you can actually add more details. So if you feel like your portraits are lacking details, just go for bigger paper and use a bigger scale. That way you can add and incorporate more and more details. You can, do every single strand of the hair, which will look amazing. And a lot of times when you're erasing, it's very difficult to erase small parts on a small piece of paper. So basically go for a bigger piece of paper to add more detail. Now the sixth tip is to spend more time on your portraits. Now this is something I used to do a lot as a beginner, was to not spend a lot of time on a portraits. I used to rush it. I used to want to complete it really fast and post it on Instagram. But it's completely opposite now. I don't care if I post it or not. I take my time and enjoy my portraits and spend more time on it, right? Now, you don't necessarily have to spend years and years on a portrait. I'm just saying maybe an hour more than you usually do, and see how it plays out, because sometimes you can even increase it way too much, and in that way you're actually decreasing your productivity and your efficiency. You're like taking too much time for things that can be done really fast. But in general, if you feel like you're being too fast. Be honest with yourself and ask yourself if you're being too fast with your portraits, and kind of slow down. The seventh tip is to take out distractions. Now this goes along with spending more time. You can spend a lot of time at the same time be distracted. The maximum I feel anyone should go is listen to music. But apart from that, take out every distraction you have. Go to a silent room and just focus on your portrait. Don't start walking around, and don't pick up calls if it's okay, and don't switch off your notifications. Try to take out every distraction possible that you possibly can, because this will actually improve your focus and help you spend less time. The more focused you are, the more efficient you will be, and the better your portrait will turn out. So take out distractions. Tip number 8, draw the eyes really well. Now, most people say that the essence of a portrait lies in the eyes, because the more well you draw the eye, the more realistic you draw it, it actually brings more life into the portrait. Think about it. Most times in a portrait, the person is facing you, right? And you want the eyes to look amazing and realistic as possible. I can show you tons of examples of portraits where the eyes actually bring out the life of the portrait. Now, I'm not saying the rest of the parts are not important, but get the eye right. Maybe that's what's lacking in your portrait. The 9th tip is to try and draw every strand of hair. Now, most portraits involve hair, right? Yeah, there are curly hair, straight hair. When you ignore the details of the hair, it starts looking dull. And as much as every strand of hair is important, there's also flow, the flow of the hair. Keep the flow in mind and also try to draw every strand as much as possible. It will look better, and it is hard to do, but stay patient and do it. You will get a better portrait. You will get a better result and a better portrait. So the 10th and final tip is to actually enjoy the process. Now, it might not sound that practical, but by far I think it's the most practical out of these tips. I don't know anyone who has done anything great without enjoying the process. So make sure you enjoy the process. Go look at some, pictures on Pinterest of great portraits, or on Instagram. Get inspiration. That's why I say spend more time and more focus. You'll be able to do both of those if you enjoy the process. So keep drawing, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. So if you think this video really helped you, please leave a like and subscribe for more videos. And I'll see you in the next video. Keep drawing.